So welcome to part 2 of the lesson 3, which is dealing with secretarial standards and the aspect of drafting of resolutions. So in the earlier part, we have discussed on the secretarial standard of board meetings. Now let us discuss the secretarial standard on general meetings. We have effectively covered the collective decision making powers of the board and the board meetings. Now in this, we will be covering the aspects of general meeting and the aspects of practical aspects of drafting resolutions. So secretarial standard on general meetings is a bit wider than the board meetings because of the complexity that is large shareholders and the voting and all involved. So under this, we will essentially cover the concepts of convening of a meeting just like we did for the board meeting, then quorum, attendance, the same part, chairman, how it will happen, the concept of proxies, it is in addition, voting, wherein we will discuss e-voting and poll. Then this another very important and my favorite concept, which is withdrawal, modification and rescinding of resolutions. How we do it, and this is practically also very relevant. Then reading of reports like auditor's report or statutory auditor report. How will it be read before the shareholders? Adjournment of the meeting, concept of postal ballot, minutes, a report on AGM which is introduced under the Companies Act 2013, and again as we discussed earlier, disclosure. So disclosure is again in the disclosure in the director's report as to whether the secretarial standards have been complied by the company or not in terms of holding of general body meetings. So this is it. This is what we'll be discussing in the subsequent slides on secretarial standards applicable for general meetings. The first and the foremost, which is convening of general meetings. So under convening of general meetings, the general meeting, that is the meeting of the shareholders, can be convened by the board of directors or on the authority of the board of directors, right? So this is like if it's a annual general meeting, then it is convened by the board of directors. And in case of an EGM, EGM is not a repetitive item. It is only as and when. That is an extraordinary general meeting is only in case of urgent matters, and hence that is on an authority of the board of directors. So the two kinds of meetings, as you know, as it is famously known in any Companies Act which you have read till now. So the Companies Act 2013, which you would have studied in your executive, is the annual general meeting and the extraordinary general meeting. And under the annual general meeting, we have ordinary business and special businesses, whereas under the extraordinary general meeting, we have meetings which are either requisitioned by the board of directors, so that is what is authority of the board, or requisitioned by members. So even members can ask for an extraordinary general meeting. However, in order for the members to requisition extraordinary general meeting, they need to hold at least 1/10 of the paid up share capital in case of a company having share capital, and in case of a company not having share capital, it shall be at least 1/10 of the total voting powers. So this is about convening of general meeting, and the aspects of ordinary and special business will be discussed in the subsequent slides. Notice. So notice plays a very important role in case of a general body meeting. So in order for you to better understand the aspect of notice, at the end of all the secretarial stand, at the end of this secretarial standard covering this, I would be taking you through the notice of Infosys. So the notice of annual general meeting of the Infosys, wherein you will understand how each of these secretarial standards have been complied by the company secretary of the Infosys, right? So that before that, let's do a sum of, let's do the theory part of the secretarial standard. So firstly, notice shall be sent to every member of the company, even to the directors and also statutory auditors and secretarial auditors. Even the directors and auditors shall be present during the meeting, and hence notice shall go to them. The mode of delivery of notice can be either by hand or by post, by which we mean an ordinary post, speed post, registered post, or even a courier, and electronic means as either in fax, email, or any other electronic means. It shall be hosted on the website and DDTV, as we discussed even for SS1, that is day, date, time, and venue shall be clearly specified. The nature of the meeting shall be specified, that is AGM or EGM, and the business to be transacted, ordinary business 1, 2, special business 1, 2. So when you look at the notice, you'll clearly understand what they're talking. And when it comes to venue, even a roadmap, a route map to venue should also be present as to how they have to give the nearest nearby landmark and also a route map to the venue. And then notice, coming to the notice, it requires 21 clear days notice. So these are also things which we have discussed, which you would have studied in your executive, but just for the sake of your remembrance, remember that 21 clear days means it excludes particularly the date of dispatch and the date of the AGM, which effectively means 21 plus 2, 23, plus 2 days if it is by way of a registered post or a speed post. When you're sending it by post, which means 25 days. So totally it is 25 days, but when it comes to clear days, it is 21 clear days, right? Then a meeting, a notice shall also be enclosed, or it should also have an attendance slip and a proxy form. And coming to the topic of postponing or cancellation of a meeting, suppose a notice has already been sent, but now you want to postpone or cancel a meeting. Is it possible? The answer should be no. So generally you cannot postpone or cancel a meeting. However, for reasons beyond control, if you need to postpone or cancel a meeting, then you need to give not less than 3 days of intimation to the members, right? So a 3 days intimation, which will be individually sent, or you can go for a newspaper publication. And this newspaper publication is such that which shall be in the vernacular, I mean in the vernacular newspaper of the place where the registered office is situated, and in a vernacular language. So if the newspaper publication is made also, this will be a good compliance, right? So now let's move forward. Frequency of the meetings. So when it comes to AGM, as you widely know, it is once in each calendar year. Only that meeting will be called as an annual general meeting, which shall be within 6 months from the end of the financial year. But EGM will be between two AGMs. Any meeting which you require for the purpose of obtaining approval from the shareholders, it will be through an extraordinary general meeting, and can be. I mean, it is usually in urgent in nature. That is when you call for an EGM, and it can be either requested by the board or by the members, as we discussed earlier. Coming to the concept of quorum. So quorum is, again, as we discussed in the board, quorum is the base minimum number of people who shall be present in order for a meeting to be held, right? So in case of a public company, in general body meetings, the quorum depends on the number of members of such company. If it is up to 1,000 members, if the number of members is not exceeding 1,000, then the quorum shall be minimum 5. If it is more than 1,000 but not exceeding 5,000, then the quorum shall be minimum 15. And if it is more than 5,000, the quorum shall be minimum 30. Whereas when it comes to a private limited company, the quorum is 2. Right? So this is the basic quorum. And now, as the same rule applies, this quorum shall be present throughout the meeting. So every resolution, you need to ensure that the requisite quorum is present. And the authorized representative of the President of India or the Governor of a state shall be considered as if a member has been present in person, and hence they also shall be counted as quorum. Whereas for other members, proxies cannot be counted as quorum. Proxies are not excluded from quorum. Right? So this is about quorum of general body meetings. Now, directors and auditors, as I said earlier, the directors and auditors shall also be present during the meeting. And if at all any director is absent, then the chairman shall explain the reasons as to why such director is absent. The chairman shall explain to the members of the company. Next, the auditors who are present during the meeting will have two responsibilities. One, to read out their reports, so that we will cover subsequently after this. And also the second is that they have a right to be heard. So wherever the items of business in which they are concerned, they have every right to be heard, and they can represent themselves and they can make the comments before the annual general meeting. And such auditors, it may be present either themselves or through authorized representatives, because authorized representatives in case of an auditor firm, right? Chairman. So the chairman of the board will become the chairman of the meetings of the members as well. However, what will happen if the chairman is not present within 15 minutes? In such a case, the directors present shall appoint one among themselves as the chairman and act as the chairman for the meeting. If the director is unwilling to act as a chairman, or the none of the directors are present, then the members themselves shall elect one among themselves through show of hands. That is, one person will have one vote and they will appoint one among themselves to chair the meeting. So that is what will happen. And such a chairman, before putting any resolution before the shareholders to vote on, shall explain the objective and implications of the proposed resolution. So that is the primary obligation of a chairman. He shall explain why the resolution is proposed to be passed and what is the agenda behind passing this resolution. So that becomes a primary role of a chairman. And such a chairman shall not propose any resolution in the matter of which the chairman is interested. So if the chairman is interested in that matter, then if a chairman is interested in an item of business, then such a resolution shall not be proposed by the chairman. Some other member should propose such resolution, right? Now, coming to the concept of proxy. So, proxy, as the name suggests, is a person who will represent you as a member. Suppose you are a member of a company, then if you cannot attend a meeting, you can send someone else to attend a meeting, and such other person will be called as a proxy. And who can appoint proxies? Only the members who hold shares can appoint the proxies, and such single proxy cannot represent more than 50 members, and he can also not represent more than 10% of the paid up share capital of the company. So, whichever is meeting, he has to meet both these criteria. So if suppose 20 members of the company have more than 10% of the paid up share capital, then he cannot represent more than 20. If only single person has more than 10% of the paid up share capital, then this person as a proxy can represent only that single person, right? So you cannot represent more than one member in such a case. So like that, it is the maximum 10% of the paid up share capital which he can represent. And such a proxy shall be duly stamped. So the stamping is very important. It will be 25 paisa, and it depends on the respective stage, but usually it will be 25 paisa stamp, which you have to affix and send it to the respective registered office of the company. And such a proxy shall be deposited at least 48 hours before the commencement of the general body meeting. And in case multiple proxies have been given by a single member, then the latest, that is the last one which has been received, shall be deemed to be valid, and the rest shall not be considered. And in case the meeting is adjourned for any reason, adjournment, we will see what will happen in case of an adjournment. Then in such a case, the proxy, if suppose you did not appoint any proxy for the original meeting, then for the adjourned meeting, you can appoint a proxy. And you can also change a proxy if you want, if you have earlier appointed one. And in order to revoke a proxy, what are the conditions or what are the criteria? So firstly, if a proxy has been appointed for an adjourned meeting, then the proxy who has been appointed for the original meeting shall stand revoked. And in case a member wants to revoke a proxy, he can do it at any time before the commencement of the meeting. And if a member attends the meeting along with the proxy, then the proxy is automatically revoked, right? So if at all a member is attending alongside the proxy, then the proxy shall stand revoked. It cannot be held valid because the member himself is present in the meeting. No, so there is no point of holding the validity of the proxy. Now coming to the voting. In general body meeting, voting plays a very crucial role. So here you need to remember this concept of proposing and seconding of resolutions. So what is this concept? So this is an age-old concept in voting where there is shares voted by show of hands. Where, I mean, even now it is practiced in companies where e-voting is not mandatory or where you are not going for postal ballot. So in such a case, firstly, every resolution has to be proposed by the members themselves. Even though the resolution has already been sent through a notice, the draft resolution has been sent through a notice, the members shall again propose the same, and there shall be another member who shall second the resolution. You should second such proposal. So two members should be ready to put it forward before the voting. That is the agenda. So in the meeting, it will be asked, okay, who proposes the meeting? So I propose the meeting immediately. Propose the resolution immediately. Another shareholder will shout and say, I second the resolution. Then the company secretary will say that, okay, now that the resolution has been proposed as well as seconded, it is put forward before the shareholders for voting. Then the shareholders will vote on the resolution. So this is how it happens in case of a show of hands, right? Now, with the advent of Companies Act 2013, the concept of remote e-voting has been made mandatory for listed companies and also for those public companies having more than 1,000 members. So, in such a case, what will happen in a remote voting, we will see in the subsequent slide. But in case of remote voting, there will not be any concept of proposal or second because it is already put forward in the cloud. That is in for the voting of all the members even at their remote locations. So they can vote even from Jammu and Kashmir or Kanyakumari. Hence, there is no point of proposing or seconding in case of a remote e-voting. And even though remote e-voting has been provided, whoever the shareholders still have a right to attend the meeting. They can still not vote and the remote e-voting and still come to the meeting and vote thereof. So hence ballot papers have to be provided for the shareholders to vote at the venue. So in place of the ballot papers, they can also provide e-voting facility even at the venue. Now the show of hands and poll are the two modes of voting which are famously available. Show of hands means each member will have one vote, whereas in case of a poll, each share will get one vote. So in case of certain resolutions, the members present can demand for a poll. So where a valid demand has been received, then the chairman shall conduct such business only through poll, and that has to be happened within 48 hours of such demand. Right? So that is the concept of a poll. Now, casting vote, that is whenever there is a tie, right, as to the resolution received in favor and against, if they are received equally, so equal votes have been cast in favor and against, then the chairperson can exercise his or her casting vote and decide which on which side it shall fall. It shall be either in favor or against. And the related party cannot vote on a transaction where he or she is a related party. So the member who is a related party cannot vote on transactions to which he or she is a related party. Now coming to the remote e-voting concept. So the conduct of e-voting happens this way. Firstly, we have to appoint an agency. The board of directors will appoint an agency, also scrutinizers. So scrutinizers' role is to look at the output of voting, whereas agency will provide the voting facility. And the board of directors shall also decide the cutoff date, and this cutoff date is for reckoning the members entitled to vote on such items. So if suppose today I have sent the notice, then maybe at least 7 days, so it should not be not more than 7 days before the date of the meeting. So if 30th is the 30th is the meeting date, then 23rd or any date before 23rd shall be when you will reckon the members who will be entitled to vote, right? So that is something important. And you such e-voting shall also remain open for at least 3 days. So these 3 days are not any 3 days. These are the 3 days before the annual general meeting, and such voting shall end at 5 p.m. on the preceding date of the general meeting. So 5 p.m. of the preceding date of the general meeting is when the e-voting portal shall close, and it shall be open for at least 3 days. So such accordingly we will plan for the opening of voting for the shareholders from any point of, from their home, from any remote location they can vote, and they will be sent password and also their user ID. I will show you in the notice of Infosys how those instructions shall be given. All the e-voting instructions shall form part of your notice. Okay. And the board of directors shall also authorize the chairman or any director in the absence of the chairman to receive the scrutinizer's report. And once the scrutinizer's report is received, that the chairperson shall countersign the scrutinizer's report and declare the results. And such a declaration of results, such results shall also be posted on the website of the company. At the same time, it shall also be made available at the registered office or corporate office or head office. So remember this point: in case of an e-voting, results cannot be declared immediately right on the date of the AGM. Right, because it takes time for the results to be compiled, and hence the act has provided for 48 hours within which you can release the results, whereas in case of a listed company, within 24 hours you have to update the results, right? Now, withdrawal or rescinding or modification of resolutions. This is, as I said, is a very interesting thing, because at times there might be a resolution which is passed, but you want, which is proposed, which you have sent the notice, but you want to withdraw it now, right? So generally it is not possible when, so prohibition on withdrawal. So this prohibition is purely on withdrawal, and such a prohibition shall be effective if such business is likely to impact the market price. So such prices, such items you cannot withdraw. Second, if a resolution has been proposed to remote e-voting, you cannot withdraw such resolution. So this you have to keep in mind. Coming to rescinding. Rescinding means cancellation. So the meaning of rescinding is cancellation. So you can rescind any resolution only by way of passing a resolution in a subsequent meeting. Hence, passing a resolution in subsequent meeting is important in order for you to rescind the meeting, right? And next is modification. So if you want to modify a resolution, you can do it even at the same meeting, only when there is no material change. In such a case, such modification shall also be proposed, seconded and adopted by the members. However, where there is a material change, such modification is not allowed, right? So we should keep that in mind. And also in case of remote e-voting, there is no possibility of modification, because the shareholders have already voted. So since as I earlier said, it will be open for 3 days before the general body meeting. Hence, there would have been large number of shareholders who already would have voted on it. Hence, such resolutions cannot be modified at on the AGM date, right? And how are these practically important? So at times there might be situations when your clients might say that, in this draft of the resolution, there is a mistake in the terms of the resolution, right, in the terms of issue. So if it is a material change, then you should tell them no, it is not possible to modify, and hence you will get the resolution, propose it before the shareholders, let them know, see, this is this is what is the thing, and there is a mistake in this, and hence they would reject the resolution, right? And there is one more option you can do. If such a resolution has already been passed, you did not notice. Later you notice that there is a big mistake in it. Then in a subsequent meeting, you can rescind the resolution by way of passing a resolution in the subsequent meeting, right? So these are possible things and which are practically which you will do as a company secretary in practical scenarios, and hence you should have a fair knowledge as to how it will be done. Now coming to the concept of adjournment, right? So this is again a very self-explanatory concept. So if you are adjourning a general body meeting for any reason, then if such adjournment is for more than 30 days, then you have to give a fresh notice. If it is for less than 30 days, either 3 days intimation or the newspaper publication as we discussed earlier, that will do. And if it is for want of quorum, that means quorum has not been present within 30 minutes, then in such a case the adjournment will by default be for the same on the same day next week. The time and venue also will be the same day, time and venue in the next week. Or if any other day, date, time or venue is determined by the board of directors, then 3 days intimation or newspaper publication is mandatory. And in case of an EGM, extraordinary general meeting requisitioned by the members, in such a case, if quorum is not present within half an hour, there is no possibility of an adjournment and the meeting will be deemed to be cancelled. It shall stand cancelled. And remember, one important thing in case of an adjournment is that in an adjournment, only unfinished business shall be considered. So adjournment is not postponement of the date. Postponement is different. Postponement is even before the meeting is held, you are postponing the date. Adjournment is you are present on the date of the meeting. However, during the meeting, quorum is not present, or something happened, some riot happened, some bandh has happened. So for some reason, you are supposed to close you are supposed to end the meeting. Then the rest of the meeting, that is the unfinished business, shall be considered in the adjourned meeting. So this is the concept of adjournment. Now coming to this concept of postal ballot. So just like you have resolution by circulation in Secretarial Standard 1 for board meetings, we have postal ballot for general body meetings. So there are certain mandatory items which are prescribed. So this you can refer from your material. So these are certain prescribed items of business for which postal ballot is mandatory, right? So such items shall be voted only upon a postal ballot. However, where in case of listed company or public companies having more than 1,000 members for whom remote e-voting is mandatory for any meeting, and also a physically held meeting shall be held. So in such a case, postal ballot is not required. This remote e-voting plus physically held meeting will be valid. So that is deemed to be, it's deemed that it is passed through a postal ballot. So generally what is a postal ballot? You will send a postal ballot form which contains prepaid reply envelope which is addressed to the scrutinizer. So postal ballot form itself will contain the duly stamped, shall be duly stamped, and it will be prepaid a reply envelope. So you will already pay for that reply, and basically it's an envelope wherein the address of the scrutinizer, everything will be there on the envelope. So you will send a notice. So the notice shall go to every member, and inside the notice you will find this form, the postal ballot form, where the resolution name will be given, either approved or rejected form will be given. They will tick on it and they will fold the postal ballot form and keep it in a envelope, and such envelope also shall be provided by the company only, which shall be duly stamped. The member should not be charged for it, and it has to be a prepaid envelope wherein the address of the scrutinizer shall be specified, and the members will just post it through the postal office and it will reach the scrutinizer. Scrutinizer will compute the votes. So instead of this, if the company is mandated to provide a remote e-voting facility, then this need not be done. The remote e-voting facility is sufficient enough compliance. So that is what is the clarification provided. In the Act, the same has been adopted in the revised secretarial standards. And similar to your voting, you should also appoint an agency who can provide this postal ballot facility, and also the scrutinizer has to be appointed for the purpose of computing of the postal ballot forms. And then the resolution shall be deemed to have been passed on the last date specified in the notice, and it will be usually 30th day. 30 days is the time period for any postal ballot, and 30th day shall be deemed to have been the date on which resolution is deemed to have been passed. If you want to cancel any resolution, that is rescind any resolution passed through postal ballot, such rescinding cannot happen through a physically held meeting. Any resolution passed through a postal ballot can be rescinded or cancelled only through a subsequent postal ballot. So even for cancellation or rescinding of such postal ballot resolution, you need to you should go for a subsequent postal ballot and get a resolution for cancellation of such resolution. A resolution for cancellation of such earlier resolution by the members of the company. This is the most important point in case of the postal ballot. Now coming to the concept of minutes. So remember, it's the same. In minutes, it's more or less the same as we discussed for secretarial standard for board of directors. There has to be a separate and distinct book maintained for minutes. The pages shall be consecutively numbered. The serial number of the meeting of the general body shall be clearly specified, and also the day, date, time, and venue shall be specified. The name of the directors presenting the meeting, the CS and auditors, this also has to be done, has to be specified. And alongside, there shall be whatever the deliberations have been made, it shall be summarized. A brief report on the e-voting shall be made, and all the so coming to the recording of minutes, the final minutes shall be entered within 30 days. The date of entry also shall be specified, 30 days of conclusion, and it shall be signed and dated by the chairman within 30 days. So in board meeting, we have seen that within 30 days, chairman need not sign. Whereas for general body meeting, the chairman shall sign and date it within 30 days from the general body meeting. And when it comes to inspection, the directors or members, even members can inspect because it is their own meeting. An extract of or a certified copy of resolution. What is this concept? So usually for the purposes of availing loan or something, you will give certified copies to to the banks. So certified copies of the resolutions can be given because resolutions have already been passed. But extract of the minutes cannot be given unless such minutes have been entered in the minutes book. So that is important. And the minutes book shall be preserved permanently, as we know, as we have discussed in Secretarial Standard 1. So this is the discussion on minutes. And as even the same thing we did for the Secretarial Standard 1, what are certain mandatory things? These are, again, I'll do a skim reading through it. So any chairperson, if you are appointing, then that item shall be present. Then the auditor's report and Secretarial Standard audit report, whichever has been available for inspection during the meeting, then the same registers which are available, you have to mention the fact that they are been available and made available during the meeting for the shareholders. You need to specify whether the quorum has been present or not. Total number of members present in person and in proxy, number of proxies present, you have to state that. Then you have to make a statement as to whether the audit committee, nomination committee, and the stakeholders relationship committee chairpersons have been present or not. And the secretarial auditor and the statutory auditor, whether they are present or not, has to be specified. And opening remarks of the chairman, the summary of the same shall be specified. Any qualifications or observations or comments made by the auditors or the directors shall be clearly specified. And reading of qualifications, observations, or comments by secretarial auditor. So this I'll just take a minute out of your time to help you understand what this is. So when it comes to reading of reports, the statutory auditor or the secretarial auditor shall particularly read out what are any qualifications or observations or comments or any remarks which they have made on any financial transactions or other matters, or even the secretarial like compliances in when it comes to the secretarial auditor, and those which have adverse effect on the functioning of the company. So such remarks or the qualifications shall be clearly read out to the members, and also it has to be read. And also the auditors, that is the statutory auditor and the secretarial auditor, shall read out the explanation offered by the directors in their directors report to the qualifications or observations made by the auditors. So this is the role, and the same has to be specified even in the minutes. And all the clarifications provided on agenda items shall be summarized. And in respect of each resolution, the type of the resolution, that is whether it is ordinary resolution or special resolution, it shall be specified. The one who has proposed it and seconded it, as I told you, there will be one member who will propose and one member who will second in case of a general meeting. So that has to be clearly specified. In case of remote voting, that won't come, but in case of any other meeting where show of hands has been there, then the proposed and seconded, the name of such members has to be given, and the majority also with which it has been passed has to be specified. And when it comes to poll, then the name of the scrutinizer appointed, number of votes cast has to be specified. And if chairman is vacating the office, then the fact that he has vacated because he's an interested party or for any other reason, that has to be specified. And as usual, the time of commencement and also the conclusion. And the DDTV, T stands for time, and that is for the commencement time. And here even the conclusion time of the general body meeting shall be clearly specified in the minutes of the company, right? So this is about the secretarial standards. And one more we need to remember is the disclosure. So the date of the AGM and also the complaints part has to be disclosed in a annual return. And apart from that, there is a report on AGM which shall be filed in form MGT 15. And this report on AGM shall contain the date of the AGM, the number of members attended, the confirmation of quorum, that quorum has been present, and also the confirmation with respect to the compliance of the Companies Act 2013 and the secretarial standards, that is Secretarial Standard 2. And also it has to briefly describe what are all the business transacted in the AGM and the summary of the discussions made during each of the business. And alongside, as I said, this MGT 15 is also, you should also attach the total items, all the items which have been discussed and the resolutions which have been passed. So that will be the form MGT 15, which is again a compliance under the Companies Act 2013, which has been introduced under the Companies Act 2013. Now let us look into the notice of Infosys and try to better understand the concept. So this is the notice of the 30th AGM of the Infosys, which is for the year 2019. But still, I thought it is, it's still relevant. There is no change in the rules, and hence I'm taking the previous AGM notice only. So if you see, the first one is the ordinary business. So what is an ordinary business? It is prescribed in the code, it's in the Act itself. The Act itself says that 4 items of business, that is adoption of financial statements, declaration of dividend, appointment of a director or appointment of an auditor. These 4 are ordinary businesses which shall be dealt with in any AGM. So every AGM, these 4 businesses are mandatory, you will see. And apart from these 4, any business considered shall be treated as a special business only. That's why AGMs are always special businesses. These are dealt with separately. And for these 3 items of business, usually there won't be any explanatory statement. But for any special business, there will be explanatory statement. So this explanatory statement will be there at the end of the notice, so that I will show you. So if you see adoption of financial statements, declaration of dividends, appointment of a director liable to retire by rotation, right? And this is the resolution which they have passed, right? So if you see this, how the draft of the resolution has been specified, the shareholders are requested to consider in Torfit to pass the following resolution as an ordinary resolution. So you have to draft and tell the shareholders that this is an ordinary resolution. So you have to specify them what kind of majority is required for this resolution to be passed. Similarly, if you see in the special business, to consider and if thought fit to pass the following resolution as a special resolution. So you have to specify that this resolution shall be passed as an ordinary or special resolution. So I'll just show you this sample in order for you to explain how drafting will also be done. So if you see, this is basically approval of ESOP scheme. So expanded stock ownership form program is nothing but an ESOP scheme. And then since it's a listed company Infosys, the SEBI SBEB regulations, that is share based employee benefits regulation, shall be applicable. So as I explained I explained this in the I'll be explaining this in the subsequent slide, the last slide, as to the practical aspects of drafting resolutions. And that the first thing is legal provisions. So if you observe here, see, pursuant to the applicable provisions of the Companies Act, SEBI SBEB regulations for the time being, right? And all those are amended and this may become, and subject to any approvals and permissions. So that is all the legal provisions. Now, second is the subject matter, right? So what is the subject matter? That is, the subject matter is the approval you need, right? So here, if you see, it says subject to any matter and so such approvals, the board and blah, 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 blah. The approval of the shareholders B&D is hereby accorded to the board. This is the language. So the resolution says that the shareholders have approved it. To whom did they approve? They approved and it has been accorded to the board. The approval is accorded to the board. That is, they have given their approval to the board to do what? To introduce a scheme, to offer, issue and provide share-based incentives under the scheme. So under this particular regulations, under this 2019 scheme, give away the employees option. So rest we will not consider, but this is the subject matter. To approve and provide share-based approvals or offers or share-based incentives under the plan. So this is the subject matter, and the rest of it is trying to explain what the subject matter is, and ancillary on other important aspects in terms of subject matter will come under this, right? And now, since the company is a corporate person, so they will firstly authorize the board and administrator, that is any individual who is appointed to administer the plan, right? So such a board will be authorized and they are authorized to delegate their powers. So this is firstly authorized to the board to execute, and the board is authorized to delegate the powers, and it will go to a further individual. Because at the end of the day, you have to file certain forms, you have to make filings before stock exchanges, obtain approval, sign on the documents. So not everyone will be authorized by law. and hence such authorizations has to be delegated. Such powers have to be delegated, and hence the shareholders will delegate it to the board. The board can further delegate it to any individual member. So this is what I call it as authorizations. And in addition to this, so authorization is last. The third point, so the first is legal provisions, second is subject matter, third is limits. So if you see here, shall not exceed 5 lakh equity shares. So this is called as limits. So where a resolution demands limits, then you have to specify such limits, which is very important. And then finally, what we have is authorizations. So authorizations have to be provided. So this is basically the practical aspects of a drafting a resolution, which I've also briefly touched upon in the subsequent slide. So now I'll just skip through all this. So these are all the special items, and hence every item will be given its name, and the resolution, the draft resolution will be considered there, and they will be asked to vote upon. If you see here, it has been signed by the company secretary by order of the board of directors. So only upon an order he has been able to sign it. And these are called as notes, in which we have to specify that proxy, a member can appoint a proxy, and you know why this is in blue and why not it is in the same font color as any other font. It's because the act itself specifies that this word, this sentence shall be visible in proximity, right? And in a sense, in prominence, it has to be prominently made visible. So either you make it in bold or it in larger font, but it has to be prominently visible. So few members make it in color, few people make it in bold. So it's up to you how it has to be apparent for the shareholders. The moment they look, they should understand, oh, what is it? Right, so that is what it is. So their right to vote a proxy has to be clearly mentioned, as we have discussed, maximum 50 members and aggregate not more than 10% of the total share capital has to be provided, right? And if you have more than 10%, then only one member shall be acting as proxy. This also we have discussed. Similarly, 48 hours for submissions. The register of directors has been kept open. Members shall remain closed. So these are all the various things which are as ancillary to it. And yeah, so look at this. This is the e-voting part. So now, yeah. So coming to the e-voting part, if you see here, these two. So firstly, under section 108, the e-voting facility has been provided to the members, and so person has been appointed as a scrutinizer. The appointment of scrutinizer has been given. This will be the appointment of agency. So this also we have discussed, correct? And then it commences on June 7th and ends on June 21st. June 22nd is AGM. One day before, that is June 21st at 5 PM, it ended. And when did it start? 17th, because at least 3 days they have kept for 4 days. It's fine. And the cutoff date they have kept is June 15. So if you observe 22nd and 15, 7 days. So 7 days they kept the minimum period, and these are the ones who can cash their votes, right? They can cash those. So as on June 15, you have to be a member. So if you have sold away your shares on June 10th but bought it back by June 15, it's fine. But as on June 15, you have to stand as member on the books of the company. So that is very important. And coming to the annual report part, and also here one thing like you need to remember, yeah, that is explanatory statement. So if you see items 4, 5 and 6, correct? So explanatory statement has been given to 4, 5 and 6. 1, 2, 3 they did not give explanation because they are ordinary businesses. For all special businesses we give explanatory statements, right? So there they give the entire description, basically whatever the information you want the shareholders to conceive and accordingly vote on an item of business, you will provide it in an explanatory statement. And at the end of the explanatory statement, again the shareholders, the CS shall sign. And in case of any additional information, yeah, this is the director who has been voted upon. So now this is a proxy form. So this is a form in form MGT11. It is specified in the Companies Act 2013 only, in which there will be name of the member, the original member. The member shall sign. So this will be the signature where the member shall sign. So in case of joint members, this is basically for proxies. So proxy 1 in his absence, 2 in his absence, 3 and all, right? And these are the items of business which the member himself can vote. Member can vote, say this is what are my votes, and the proxy is appointed only at the adjournment. The proxy can attend the meeting and vote on my behalf in the following manner. right? So this is the revenue stamp, not less than 1 rupee. Oh, sorry, I said it is 25 paisa. I stand corrected. It is not less than 1 rupee, and it is because it is and in the state of Karnataka, and in few states it is still 25 paisa. So the member shall sign here. All the proxy holders will again sign here, and then this is what is a complete proxy form which will be submitted at least 48 hours before the commencement of the meeting. And this is an attendance slip. So as I told again in the previous thing, we have seen attendance slip where your folio number, DPID, client ID, as since it is a listed company, is a normal company, then your folio number will always be there. So that has to be provided, and the number of shares held also has to be specified, right? And then you will certify that I am a member, I'm authorized person, I'm authorized to open, and I hereby record my presence. You will sign it, and then you will submit it before the company. And finally, the route map to the venue, this which we were discussing. So the address of the venue also has to be clearly specified. So if you see, this is the address, the Christ University Auditorium, where Infosys AGM will be held. So they have given you the route map. So if you're coming from MG Road, you need to come like this. If you're coming to Hauser Main Road, then it is like straight. If Hauser Road, you have to come straight. From the Foreign Mall, you have to take a U-turn. So this is all something which has to be specified now. So this is intended at giving an exact location of the venue where the AGM is going to be held. So this is about the notice of Infosys. So I hope with this notice you have got a more practical understanding of how resolutions are drafted and also how notice is being drafted, right? So with this intention only, I've taken some time to show you the notice of Infosys, because Infosys is considered one of the best corporate governance practices. Infosys has one of the best corporate governance practices in the world, and that is the reason why I have taken it from the Infosys, right? Hope this is helpful. Now let's just quickly look at the practical aspects of drafting and wrap up this lesson. Now, so before we conclude this lesson, I will just briefly touch upon the practical aspects of drafting resolutions. In order, if you need a detailed practice on drafting of resolutions, then you can fill the form which we have given in the description below. So accordingly, we will get in touch with you. But in the interest of all, I'm not going to go in detail. So this would be, these are the 4 things on the slide which I suggest as a company secretary for every student and also any other professional before drafting any resolution. First, you have to be thorough with the legal provisions. So under what provision are you taking this resolution? Because any approval you take from the board or the shareholders will be backed by some kind of a resolution. It is a requirement of some kind of a provision under the code, under the Act, Companies Act. So Companies Act under in some section would have said take approval of the board or take approval of the shareholders. Hence, mentioning of such approvals or mentioning of such provisions is very important. Second, subject matter. You have to convey the subject matter and tell the shareholders this is what I want from you, or tell the board of directors this is what I want from you. Correct? So the subject matter emphasis is very important. For example, if it is an issue of preferential shares, then you should clearly state that resolve that pursuant to section so and so of the Companies Act, including any amendment made thereunder, the approval of the shareholders is hereby accorded to the company to issue, or accorded to the board to issue those many number of shares of those many, of rupees 10 each to dash dash dash, because it's a preferential placement, right? So this is what is the subject matter all about. In the subject matter, you have to clearly tell the shareholders what they're approving, or tell the board what they're approving. The draft of the resolution shall be very clear, and also it shall be in such a way that they've already approved it. So the resolution will be drafted in such a way that they have already approved it, but they will vote on it. If they vote in the requisite majority, if they vote as per the required majority, then such resolution is deemed to have been passed. If not, the resolution is not passed. But the language of the resolution stands as if they have passed the resolution, right? So this also I will show in the notice of, this you have observed in the notice of Infosys which we discussed earlier, right? So in the notice of Infosys also I have shown you that, if you see that, if you have observed the language there in each of the business, they have said resolve that, and also the approval has been hereby accorded to, consent has been given, right? So remember that language. That is how the subject matter will be provided. And in case you are taking any financial limits, you are getting approval on any financial limit, such limit shall be clearly specified. The earlier limit and also the current limit for which you are taking approval shall be clearly specified. And authorizations. So usually, since company is a corporate person, it cannot sign, it cannot execute any document. So where a resolution requires execution of any documents or submission of any forms, it is always suggested and it is important for such decision making authority to further authorize that person who shall represent the company in terms of execution of such document or providing of the document before any authority. So this is another important aspect in terms of drafting of resolutions, right? So with this, we finish the lesson. Thank you so much. So thanks for watching the video. If you wish to learn more on how to draft, or you want to practice various exercises to sharpen your drafting skills for your examination and also for your practice as a trainee or as a company secretary, please fill in the information in the form which is provided in the description below. We are coming out with a course very soon. Thank you. Stay tuned to Virtual Law, and this is Prakul signing off from VL Academy.